Hello everybody, Adam Nicholas here for What Culture Wrestling, here to bring you the news in the absence of our usual team because it's a Sunday and who else would be daft enough to come in on a Sunday apart from the loyal content supporter who's going to edit Simon Miller's ups and downs for Fyter Fest. So keep your eyes out for that, that'll be coming up later on today. But for right now, I'm here to bring you all of the latest news this weekend. Now obviously there's quite a bit that's gone on, but let me fill you in on what news we have today. Coming up, we have the latest on a new wrestling promotion set to offer its performers health insurance. WWE are also stacking their card ahead of this week's Monday Night Raw in an attempt to improve the viewership ratings, and find out which WWE official has been robbed for almost $55,000 worth of collectible memorabilia. But first off, our big news story that we're going to lead with today revolves around AEW's Fyter Fest pay-per-view that took place last night, and more specifically, the aftermath of a certain thing that occurred. Now before I get started, this obviously will contain spoilers, so if you do not want to know what happened last night or you haven't watched it yet, please look away now, you have been warned. But in the match between Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin, there was a moment post-match where Cody Rhodes was hit by a chair by Shawn Spears, who turned up and smashed him in the head with a chair. Now most notably about this was an unprotected chair shot, which did not look nice on first looking. So the problem with this is, of course, it seemed like this was a massive step away from perhaps what we've moved on from since the likes of the Attitude Era and of course the Ruthless Aggression Era, which saw a lot of people suffering concussions, etc. from this. Now we've had obviously AEW do their post pay-per-view scrums, and we've had a lot of aftermath regarding this particular incident. But one reporter, John Alba, the sports reporter and host of the Living the Gimmick podcast, has been on Twitter. He got an interview with the Young Bucks and with Tony Khan last night. I've got a few select quotes from him here regarding what he learned about this particular moment. I'll just read these quotes out to you now. John Alba says, "The Young Bucks insinuate the chair shot Cody took was not unprotected and say it was his idea to take it. Said the chair was gimmicked, but that the gimmick didn't work." Now I should point out that after Cody Rhodes was hit with this chair, he had a massive gash on the back of his head, lots of blood everywhere, not a good look. But also following on from that interview, John also managed to interview Tony Khan, and Khan's comments were as follows, as tweeted by John on Twitter. Tony Khan says he can't go into details at the moment on the Cody chair shot, but they got the doctor right away. Something went wrong. You could build the safest airplane in the world, but if there's pilot error, then there's pilot error. Says he will address it soon. So obviously these are some very, I guess safe is the comment we'll use here, because they don't want to rush in to try and explain this when they kind of probably have to look over it themselves. This was all just after the pay-per-view. Fortunately, it sounds like Cody is okay. He has 12 stitches in his head, no concussion, as was tweeted out by AEW, along with pictures of Cody, who was backstage on the monitors looking on at the show and helping to produce. So I guess from that point, good news on Cody Rhodes. Not so great news, I guess, on the fact that unprotected chair shots really don't seem to be able to say that. They've started to rear their head in this particular situation. Now, a lot of people might want to jump on this as a negative. I think we should hold back for the time being because we don't know that's going to be something that they're crucially interested in. This is one thing they've tried. They obviously wanted to maybe add some shock value, particularly as it seems it was Cody's idea. It hasn't worked. I guess whatever's happened has backfired. If the chair was padded, hasn't been hit on the right spot, whatever the case, this hasn't worked the way they wanted it to, and unfortunately has put a bit of a mark on the pay-per-view itself, which was pretty good in fairness, and I should point out, definitely watch it because I watched it this morning and it is worth your time, particularly the main event between Jon Moxley and Joey Janela. But for now, we can only speculate on what will come of that in the future. Tony Khan said he will address it soon, and until then, I guess we'll have to leave it at that. But moving on to our next news story, Alberto El Patron has started up a new wrestling promotion called Nacion Lucha Libre, which happened a couple of weeks back on June the 11th. It was announced on Tuesday, where he basically said he was starting a new promotion. Well, he's followed that up since in an interview with the Miami Herald, where he's also stated that there's a few things that he wants to add that perhaps aren't happening in wrestling at the moment, and one of them is health insurance. Now this is a bold claim, and I've got the quotes here from that interview. One that I think is an interesting quote, but also might be difficult to follow up on, but who knows? Let me just read these out for you now. "We're always going to have doctors. Our wrestlers are going to have health insurance and life insurance, stuff they don't have in any other companies. Most of the companies, including WWE, they have their own doctors. They don't provide you with health insurance. They force you to get your own health insurance. If you don't get your own insurance, you're not allowed to perform. If anything happens in their shows, yes, you're completely covered, which I think is the only company that are doing that. Me, I remember having a terrible injury about 8 years ago and they took care of everything. I think they're the only company doing that, but they don't actually provide you with health insurance. They're just covered in their event. Now, he went on to also say that the insurance I'm going to be giving the luchador wrestlers in Nacion Lucha Libre, it's going to cover them inside and outside the ring. It's really important to give a worker everything they deserve: health insurance, life insurance, a retirement plan, stuff they've never had before. At the end of the day, for promoters, wrestlers are just meat. Wrestlers are just another name and they don't care and 100% about wrestlers. They care that we're on top and producing money for them. It's the nature of the business. It's not just professional wrestling either. It's any sport, boxing, MMA, any other sport. They're only looking out for their own interests and to help their bank account. Now, this is a bold statement. This is a massive way to try to get some interest for Nacion Lucha Libre and surely to attract potential performers and wrestlers to the company, if they can make it work. And it's a big if, because there's obviously a reason why companies have stayed away from this. The very nature of the sport, the very nature of the entertainment suggests that a lot of injuries could occur, and obviously we've seen it in WWE, a company who have upwards of 100 plus employees in terms of just in-ring talent who get injured all the time. So this is, it's fascinating to see. This is a big change that we wanted to see. This is the kind of change we were hoping we might see from the likes of AEW. They've kind of been a bit cautious when talking about this in recent days and months. They basically said that they would be interested in it but need to look into it. Whereas this is a bold statement. This is saying they want to offer that to the performers. Now, whether or not it's feasible or not, I don't know. Lots of skepticism already in response to this I've seen, but you have to think that perhaps, listen, we can't complain about this because you have to think this is a good thing. This is a positive change you'd want to see from a new company, and if you're going to back that up, fantastic. I guess, again, like everything else here, we can only find out in due course. But for now, a positive stance from Alberto El Patron and his new promotion, Nacion Lucha Libre. Let's move on to our next story, which is WWE stacking their card for this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. Now, obviously, recently there have been a bit of, well, I'd say a bit, I'd mean a lot of very, 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 very bad viewership ratings to do with Raw and SmackDown. As we've seen, we had Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff instated as executive producers for Raw and for SmackDown respectively. Well, WWE have also been announcing a lot of pre-Raw matches and appearances to go to try and boost the card in general. The big match they've said in there, first time ever, as we know they like to say, is that the New Day will be taking on the Viking Raiders as per the wild card rule, which of course at this point is literally anything you want. You can make it up as you go along apparently, but what I will say is I won't complain about it because that's a match I definitely would be looking forward to watching. Not only have they announced that though, they have also announced another few things for the card. Let me just check the notes here. Braun Strowman is set to face Bobby Lashley in a Falls Count Anywhere match, obviously following on from their feats of strength that they've been doing over the last few weeks. We've had arm wrestles, we've had tugs of war. Well, it looks like we're finally getting a match between the two, so if that floats your boat, not for me personally, but if it floats your boat, that will be happening on Raw tonight. WWE have also been teasing an appearance from The Undertaker. Now this one is interesting, hasn't been confirmed yet, but a lot of talk about what is going to be in the aftermath of last week's Monday Night Raw. Now obviously we know that Undertaker came to the rescue of Roman Reigns, and it looks like the two are tagging together in a match at Extreme Rules against Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon. So that is where we're up to with that. Maybe The Undertaker turns up, maybe he doesn't, we don't know at this exact point, but I get the feeling we could be hearing that gong very soon on Monday Night Raw. Now let me just fill you in on the figures from last week, or I think it was myself and Adam Cleary reported on this on Friday. The year-to-year report of the viewership ratings for Raw came in, and it wasn't great. I'll just quote you. This was from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, who basically said that overall views for Raw were down 19% year to year. 18 to 49 males were down 19%, 18 to 49 women were down 24%, 12 to 34 women were down 30%, 12 to 34 men were down 27%, and over 50s were down 13%. So these numbers are declining and declining rapidly, and this is something they're obviously trying to fix. So stacking the card in such a manner and announcing a lot of things before the show could be the new norm that we find going on here as we speak. But for our last news story of the day, it's not so great news for WWE official Charles Robinson, who was unfortunately the victim of a storage unit heist. Now, this was reported yesterday by TMZ Sports, but the actual robbery itself seems to have taken place a little while ago, as Charles Robinson first said he reported or has noticed that these things were missing on the 28th of May, which is about a month ago. Well, just over a month ago today. And basically, as I've got here on my notes, TMZ are saying that the storage unit was robbed of $55,000 worth of Hollywood memorabilia. Charles Robinson has been sort of accruing a collection for the last few decades of various different bits, and unfortunately it seems that someone has managed to take them from his storage unit. Now let me just run down, there's a big list on TMZ Sports, a big PDF full of all of the actual items that are on that, or that were in the storage unit, sorry. Let me just give you a few notables that we found on the list. Planet of the Apes lunchboxes, Evel Knievel stunt cycle toys, a movie statue from the film Jaws, some collectible Chucky dolls, and Friday the 13th action figures too, to name a few. There's a huge list, about 5, 6, 7 pages on a PDF. As I say, you can find that on TMZ Sports. Most notably though, the Jaws movie statue that was reported as one of the things that was missing. That apparently turned up, it's valued at $2,400, that apparently turned up on eBay around about, I think it was June 27th, that turned up. But nobody actually saw this. I think Charles Robinson missed it when it went up for sale. But the actual sale itself, the user who put it up, and the item listing is completely gone now. I presume someone has panicked and realised that somebody was onto them. But this is not good news for Charles Robinson, and it's really unfortunate that this has happened. Obviously, there's nothing you can do to replace that. That is decades of commitment to buying these things. I think the listings show he's scoured eBay, he's bought them from all sorts of places to try and build this collection. So let's hope we can find a solution to that problem for Charles Robinson in the coming weeks, although he has stated that he's been in touch with the storage company and there has been no CCTV footage to help assist him at this time. Fingers crossed for you, Charles. Although you aren't quite the favourite referee in What Culture, we still care about you dearly. And if you don't know who our favourite is, then you need to watch a little bit closer. Now, let's move on to some quick Twitter questions. I am just doing this by myself, so I have only picked 2 today because I feel a bit weird asking myself Twitter questions. There's nobody to turn to, unfortunately. Someone play the sad music at this point. But let's get the first one from Spaz Phoenix, who says, in honour of the greatness of wrestling, let's Twitter book an AEW versus WWE show. His match was Kenny Omega, Cody, the Bucks versus Adam Cole, Finn Balor, Ricochet, and Aleister Black, which would be an absolute barn burner, I'm sure. One I definitely want to watch personally, but I've had a little time to think about this. And I've decided to pick 2 matches that I'd like to see. Obviously, not to book a whole show, but one of the matches, first of all, I know you've got Kenny Omega in that bulk, Mr. Phoenix, but I personally would have to have Kenny Omega versus Johnny Gargano. Can you imagine how good that match would be? Mr. 5-star, Mr. Takeover, Johnny Takeover in one corner, and you've got Kenny Omega, who's been chucking out 5, 6, 7-star matches, whatever you want to call it, with Dave Meltzer. I honestly think this match wouldn't just break wrestling, it wouldn't just break my voice, wouldn't just break the internet, it would break Dave Meltzer's brain and shatter all the stars into tiny little fragments, and we wouldn't be seeing any more of that. What a match that would be. My other one though, big choice here, and I say big choice because of who's involved, would be Luchasaurus versus Braun Strowman. A battle of the monsters akin to Godzilla versus any Godzilla, Mothra, whoever you wanted to fight against. One of those matches, that would be incredible. And also, interesting tidbit, because Austin Mattelson was at one point being considered to be the 4th member of the Wyatt family, the 4th member of the Wyatt family. God, it's easy to do this by yourself, isn't it? And Braun Strowman and him having a match would be exceptional, I'm sure. Those would be my 2 picks anyway. Let's move on to the second question from Wayne Sharman. Thanks for the question, Wayne, who says, now that there is a bit of new direction going into Raw and SmackDown, do you think that we will see a Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT segment? Now that is very interesting indeed. Whether or not we'd actually see it, I'm not so sure, because they've been very careful, or certainly Triple H has been very careful where he can to keep NXT as separate from the other 2 brands as possible. What I will say about this is, I would absolutely love to see this, and more importantly, I think something like this would be best served maybe for, say, like a Survivor Series perhaps, where you could have actually start including NXT as the 3rd brand. I mean, obviously, I know people are going to say maybe they could do 205 Live, what about NXT UK? Those are all obviously possibilities, but these are our 3 big brands, and how much more interesting of a dynamic would it be to have Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT? Something I'd like to see personally. but perhaps we might not get a chance to. Great questions though, thanks guys for those. But for that, whew, I'm a bit exhausted now, I'll be honest. It's hot, the lamps are on me. I've been doing this now for what must nearly be the greater part of 20 minutes. Let's see where we get to at the end of that one. But no one finally today, unfortunately. I'm not as well prepared as Adam Wilborn, but I'm sure you can forgive me. I wouldn't want to steal his thunder for, well, I was going to say Monday morning, but he won't be here. There will be a different set of presenters on because he is away for his holidays because he's getting married next week. So let him know all of your best love and best thoughts towards his wedding. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at It's Adam Nicholas. You can follow What Culture on Twitter at What Culture WWE. If you have any more Twitter questions in the coming weeks, send them to us and let us know, and we will be sure to try and find the best ones and read them out on the next edition of the news. So with that, I think I'm going to get myself away and hope that Simon Miller and his ups and downs are in for Fyter Fest so I can get cracking. Anyway, that was the news. I've been Adam Nicholas. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.